In this episode of What's in a Story, we will be covering Ben 10, Avatar, Dragon Ball Z, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Viewer discretion is advised. There will be spoilers.
Welcome to What's in a Story, your one-stop shop for two random people critically assessing various forms of media and talking like we're actual experts. I'm Phat.
And I'm Mega.
Welcome to the show. Today's topic is the difference between American cartoons and Japanese cartoons, aka anime. A big part of storytelling in visual media is reactions and facial expressions. While animes have very over-the-top, drastic reactions, American cartoons have a bit less and aren't quite as expressive as anime. A good example of these over-the-top, very big reactions in anime, I think we have to talk about Dragon Ball Z, or DBZ, which has many, many over-the-top reactions and is often memed over about how it has such big reactions. For a good example is when Goku first goes Super Saiyan. He is yelling and very emotional in those moments up until he turns Super Saiyan. You can feel the pain he is in of watching his friend die, which causes him to be in this emotional state and become a Super Saiyan and evolve. And anime isn't new to that. It always does these over-the-top reactions. While things like Ben 10, which has good expressions, but aren't over-the-top, sometimes Ben's emotions, facial expressions, are kind of hard to tell and read at times, where you can kind of see how he's feeling, but they're a lot more subtle and not quite as clear and apparent as some things like Dragon Ball Z does.
And now a message from our sponsor.
Hats. Have you ever been like, the sun is in my eyes? Shucks. Had to throw it in there. But hats, you're like, the sun is in my eyes. I wish it wasn't in my eyes. Wish I could turn off the sun. Well, you can't turn off the sun because it's not electric. You can't just there's no switch to turn off the sun. Unless you can blow it up. But I don't think you can. So hats, here's where they come in. You put them on your weird shaped head, and they have little bills come out, like little patio ceilings. Roofs, you could put them, and they keep the sun out of your eyes while looking cool as heck. Hats. Buy them, use them, have a good day.
Dragon Ball Z is absolutely known for its large reactions, long screams, and excessive powering up. So it is definitely a very good example to show the tendency that anime has towards big reactions and changing the energy of a scene by overacting sometimes.
Yeah, and you definitely see it in the characters' faces as they feel all the emotions that the scene has set up, and you can very clearly feel those as well as the characters do in the same time, with their over yelling with Dragon Ball Z, or
pretty much any, actually a lot of the times that characters overreact in anime, it's actually due to a gag. Like, they find things super hilarious, or they just deadpan, in the most dramatic way possible. And deadpan is naturally not very expressive, but somehow they make it so deadpan that it feels like there's something going on there. And anime definitely has a very different energy than American cartoons, simply through how characters react to things.
Yeah. Sanji in One Piece, whenever he sees a attractive person, to put it lightly, he has these massive gallon nosebleeds that has almost killed him at points.
Yeah, in the plot, it has literally almost killed him. He needed a blood transfusion. So, yeah, and that definitely goes into something that anime likes to do with big reactions is, while reactions are big, sometimes they are emphasized by them actually affecting what happens. For example, My Hero Academia. when Midoriya starts crying at the sports festival and buries himself into the ground through his tears, that really emphasizes how he's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it does make it a lot easier to convey how much they're feeling in emotion. A lot of the times it is a bit too much.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times it is actually used properly to
convey feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
That the characters have and will often are justified, but are definitely over the top, with Sanji almost dying, but anime likes to actually have these reactions go into the plot and have them be kind of important, but pretty quickly solved, and aren't actually going to kill off characters like Sanji, who's one of the main cast.
Yeah.
It'll always be, oh, okay, we got this. But then you go to like American cartoons with Ben 10, and even characters like Grandpa Max, who is a father figure, more so than Ben's actual father in the show.
Ben has a father? What?
Yes. More than Ben's actual father. When he thinks Grandpa Max is killed or finds out he's dead, you can't really... There's not these big, like, gushing tears that Midori would have had. It's this very kind of subtle reaction of, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't like that. But his face doesn't really give it away as much as his actions afterwards.
Which sometimes subtle presentations of emotion are more realistic. And it is something where you have to pick and choose between what kind of reaction you want. Because there are definitely scenes where I definitely think a more subtle approach would be beneficial.
For sure.
And like Grandpa Max dying, I fully would understand if Ben just didn't show it and he just kind of shut down. And I think that has a completely different kind of power behind it than a character busting out in tears and like...
completely breaking down over it.
Yeah. At a certain point, it's not, hey, anime does it better, cartoons do it worse.
Yeah.
It is very different. And not that anime can't have their subtle moments. Yeah. Like in the first episode when Itadori's grandpa dies, he just presses the call button and looks up at the ceiling crying. He's not really
breaking down.
Yeah, he's sad, and it's very clear that he is. But he's not like yelling. He's not doing anything really expressive. He's doing what a reasonable, normal person would do, because he's super sad. He's not going to have the energy to move around and be upset about it. Yeah. It's and I think when American cartoons use subtle reactions effectively, it is a huge improvement over an overreaction on anime part.
Which does lead us to the next point, which is how two animes flip that. An American cartoon where Avatar has more expressive emotions, while Fullmetal Alchemist sometimes has a lot more subtle emotions.
Yeah. Fullmetal Alchemist is a series that really knows how to aim for the jugular when it comes to emotions. And it's something that's really benefits the series. Because Fullmetal Alchemist deals with really heavy topics. Like death and...
changing your daughter into a dog.
Yeah. You know, things that would make any reasonable person cry upon any viewing.
Big Brother Ed?
We're not here to make our audience cry. Facts.
Sorry, Mega.
Okay. But Ed and Al are very tragic characters in a certain sense, because they go through a lot and they have to deal with a lot. But in order to cope with that, they don't bust out in strong emotions. They focus. They think about what's going on think about what happened and they try and change or learn something that will help them in the future so they don't have to deal with that again.
Yeah, they don't have these big over-the-top reactions. It's very, like, normal and subtle reactions with their, like, friends dying. It's just crying scenes where you can definitely see, oh, the characters aren't happy about this. They're very upset and sad, but it's not over the top and crazy. It's very much like Yuji, where it's just tear scenes and you're like, oh, that's very emotional and deep.
And I actually think Avatar captures this pretty well in the same vein, where generally the reactions are more over the top and goofier than Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but at the same time, it does a good job slowing down the pace when they need something to hit harder.
Yeah,
like when there are a lot of examples of over the top reactions, but some of the more candid reactions come from when Sokka meets back up with his father to plan the war effort on the day of Black Sun.
Yeah.
And he doesn't go there and like start yelling or crying or anything. He just says, "Hey, Dad."
Yeah. Or when Zuko talks about his father banishing him, it's very emotional, theme-setting scenes where it goes very quiet. Zuko talks in a very soft voice and is very calm about the reaction, like what happened. It's very deep, emotional hitting and not over the top. Like when Aang gets excited about something, you can physically see Aang zipping around the screen or fire blasting or doing some very excited movement that shows very clearly how he is feeling in that moment.
Yeah, and that is something that Avatar does kind of fall into, where it is a show more directed towards children than Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is. So sometimes it tries to be more
over the top.
Over the top.
To grab children's reaction.
Yeah, just so people can understand how they're feeling without, trying to be subtle about it.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, Aang's a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Well, 112, but he's a 12-year-old kid.
Effectively 12.
Yeah, and it makes sense for him to be really expressive.
Mm-hmm.
And even scenes like when he finds out Monk Gyatso is dead.
Yeah.
That is a very over-the-top reaction, but it's not so much what he's doing as a character. It's more what's happening around him. Because he goes into the Avatar state for the
first time.
Yeah, for the first time. He went into the iceberg through the Avatar state.
The water, he does mess people up.
Oh yeah. On Zuko's ship, but it's one of his first times going into the Avatar state, and it is a big reaction. But on his face, you just see him being sad, and I think that's a perfect way of making it so that little kids understand how he's feeling, but also people who have kind of been through something like that understand that he's not like angry or anything. He's just sad.
Yeah.
And because he has these powers, he's lashing out without really knowing it. So Avatar is a fantastic example of a show that does both.
Yes.
Because obviously Sokka is the king of big reactions.
Yes. He has very big reactions.
Absolutely. As big as that one mushroom after he drank the cactus juice.
I love meat!
Yeah. Sokka is the over-the-top guy, but he still has those subtle moments where he doesn't really have the energy. He's just...
No.
He's just feeling something. And I think Full Metal Alchemist also definitely follows that same trend, because there are big reactions, but normally it's the gags.
Yeah, usually like when Ed gets called short, he has these very like angry over-the-top reactions where he immediately tries to beat up the person who said it.
It's still funny that he voices the same person who voices Broly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he has these very over-the-top reactions, and the animation around him sometimes changes, where it's much more like cartoony.
Yeah, it's cartoony, and the only indicator that it's Ed is the little hair strand on his head, and it's very funny.
Yeah.
But generally, Full Metal Alchemist does have more subtle reactions and, like, emotions, because they're just not the kind of characters to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They are contemplative. They think about everything that's happening. They don't try to let emotions rule them, even if they are feeling super bad. They try and channel that sadness or anger into something more productive. Except for when Shao Tucker's face is in the way.
Yes.
In which, I'm fully with Ed there.
Yeah. Poor
Alexander, poor Nina. Yeah.
So either way, over the top and subtle reactions neither of them are really good or bad. It's a matter of the style of the anime or media in which it kind of has to choose in which it wants to play. If it wants to be over the top and have those really attention-grabbing moments, or those subtle moments where it is very like deep emotional themes.
Yeah, it really is about using them in the correct spots instead of only picking one. Because you can have a show that can do both. Avatar The Last Airbender does both. Full Metal Alchemist does both. Even Dragon Ball Z, which is known for its big reactions, does both.
Much more rarely the subtle points, but it does have them.
And I would say the most subtle reaction you get out of DBZ is when 16 dies and Gohan just starts crying and goes into Super Saiyan 2. And that's not a small reaction. Yeah. Like, his actual reaction is pretty small, but what's happening around him makes it big.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think anime and cartoon have in common, where they are able to do both, but usually they prefer one over the other.
Anime typically will go with big reactions, while American cartoons will go with more subtle. They have both, but that is typically the way things flow.
Yep.
And that wraps up our episode. Thank you for coming to What's in a Story. We'll see you next time.